So we start with the Sunday evening contest, Fremantle up against the Bulldogs, a massive game for both teams. It was the Dockers who were able to break away in the second term and just hold on in the second half to win by 16 points. Fremantle 97, the Dogs 81. Now, there were a few injury concerns from this game. First of all, Luke Jackson injured his hamstring, and it does seem it will be a pretty big one. It looks like it'll be 3 to 4 weeks at this stage. Now, Sean Darcy did play in the reserves this week, so should be back next week, but not great news for the Dockers. And also, Nathan O'Driscoll was ruled out of the game with an ankle concern. At this stage, it does seem that it was just a rolled ankle, so it doesn't lean too concerning, but we'll have to wait and see throughout the week. But getting to the game itself, it was a goal-for-goal start to the contest, but it did seem the Dogs had more control of the football early. In a high-scoring opening term, neither team could break away, and at quarter time, the Dockers led 26 to 24. Now, the Dogs kicked 2 of the first 3 goals to start the second term, but then the Dockers started to get into their rhythm. Their pressure started to lift, and they were able to kick 6 goals in a row to take a 32-point lead into half-time. Now, the Dogs started well early in the second half. They just couldn't get close enough. Fremantle continued to respond every time the Dogs kicked a goal. At three-quarter time, Freo led by 24 points, but the Dogs locked it in their forward half for a lot of the opening 10 minutes of the last quarter. But it did take them quite a while to get that first goal, and they just couldn't continue on with it. Fremantle's defence held up really well from the fast-finishing Dogs, and in the end, were able to hold on and win by 16 points. So Fremantle, a good response over the last few weeks. They had a good win in the derby last week, a good win today against the Dogs. I think they can start their season up and running now. They've got the Tigers in gather round, so I think they've got that one pretty comfortably, and maybe the Dockers can start getting rolling after a couple of poor weeks to start the season. On the Bulldogs, another great performance from them. I know it was a loss, but they've got so many players out at the moment, and I think the Dogs fans will be pretty happy with their younger players, and hopefully they can just continue on and get a couple of extra wins. Maybe they can tally some wins with their best players back. But getting to the multiple goal kickers in this game, Tracy and Frederick with the 3, Shea Bolton with the 2. For the Bulldogs, Darcy with 5 goals and Sanders with the 2. On the disposals, Sarong with 38, Brayshaw with 29, Clark and Ryan with the 26, and Sharp with the 21. And for the Dogs, Liberatore 30, Dale and Kennedy with the 26, Harms 24, and Richards with the 23. And then for the AFL fantasy front, Sarong with the 121, Brayshaw 119, Ryan 109, Tracy 100, Jordan Clark 92. And for the Dogs, Darcy 128, English 114, Harms 103, Liberatore 96, and Kennedy with the 95. But now let's get to the votes in this game. So of course, 3 votes went to Sam Darcy, 2 votes went to Caleb Sarong, and the 1 vote went to Andrew Brayshaw. Sam Darcy did absolutely everything he could in this game. 5 goals, 21 disposals, 11 marks, pinched it in the ruck a little bit as well. He is in insane form to start this season, and I think we talked about it in the podcast a few weeks ago, but he is a chance that he could win the Coleman this year if he gets enough opportunity. Aaron Norton playing a little bit more up the ground at the moment. Darcy just continues to keep on keeping on. Both the midfielders for the Dockers were the real difference in this game. Sarong with the 38, of course, had 7 tackles as well. He's definitely coming into his own the last few weeks, and I think more teams need to tag him. And Andrew Brayshaw in game 150, absolutely one of the most courageous players in the game, so great job from him as well. The game on Sunday afternoon was between Port Adelaide and St Kilda at Adelaide Oval. St Kilda had a very poor record going into this game, but did get off to a hot start and were able to hold on in the last quarter to win by 17 points. 72 to Port Adelaide, 89 to the Saints. Now, Port Adelaide started pretty well with the opening goal of the game, but the Saints quickly asserted themselves. The most evident factor of this game early on was their pressure. St Kilda's pressure was higher than a pressure cooker in the opening term. Port Adelaide never had time or space. The Saints kicked 6 goals in a row to take a 30-point lead late in the first term, but with Port Adelaide getting a goal just before the quarter-time siren, they brought the lead back to just 24 points for the Saints at quarter-time. But that late goal from Port did seem to spark them into life. They kicked the first 2 goals of the term and dominated field position for the first half of the quarter. But they didn't take full advantage, and unfortunately for the Power, St Kilda went down the other end and were able to break the momentum. They kicked 3 goals in reply and pushed that margin back to over 30 points. However, yet again, Port Adelaide were able to find a late goal through Jason Horne-Francis to reduce the margin to 23 points at half-time. Now, the Saints kicked the first goal of the second half, but Port Adelaide continued to work themselves back into the contest. Despite being sloppy at times, the Power were able to kick 3 goals in a row to get within 11 points. But a late Saints goal saw them hold a 16-point lead at three-quarter time. And the Power came hard early in the final term, but took nearly half the quarter to get their first goal. But when they kicked their second, a true epic was on the cards. They were within a goal of the Saints, who seemed determined to try and save the game. But once they realised they had to go and win it, they went for it. The Saints kicked the last 2 goals of the game and in the end held on to a 17-point win. This was a real mature performance from St Kilda. I saw them have no chance in this game for the fact that they have a really poor record at Adelaide, but they did really well today. They were challenged all afternoon after a really hot start, and they were able to hold on in the last quarter when Port Adelaide were coming their hardest. So a great job from St Kilda and Port Adelaide. I don't know what's going to happen for the rest of their year. There seems they've got no cohesion up forward. Georgiades and Ollie Lord seem like the two tools that they need to keep on working on going forward, but their smalls just aren't having the impact that they need to, and their midfielders, Butters, Rosie, and Horne-Francis, we'll get to Horne-Francis in the votes, but they need to start having an impact more together because at the moment, it just seems that they're all playing more individually rather than as a team in there. But let's get to the statistics of this game. Multiple goal kickers for Port Adelaide, Georgiades, Ollie Lord, and Horne-Francis all with 3 for the Saints. Higgins with the 3, Owens with the 2. For the disposals, Butters with the 30, Horne-Francis 28, Bergman 25, Wines 23, Rosie 20. And for St Kilda, McRae 28, Sinclair 25, along with Wangadeen Miller, 19 to Wilson and 18 to Brad Hill. And finally, for the AFL Fantasy watchers out there, Jason Horne-Francis 125, Bergman 106, Georgiades 96, Butters 94, and Rosie with the 84. And for the Saints, Sinclair 95, Wanganeen Miller 91, Wilkie 85, McRae 84, and Burns with the 79. But now let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes, Jason Horne-Francis, 2 votes to Sire Wanganeen Miller, and the 1 vote to Alir. Jason Horne-Francis, even though they lost today, he did absolutely everything he could to try and get his team over the line. He's had a very poor start to the season, but he responded today. 28 touches and 3 goals from any player in the game deserves a 3-vote performance. He was insanely good. Clean with the footy, was tough over the football. It's a true Jason Horne-Francis performance, and hopefully he can continue this form going into the year. Wanganeen Miller just continues keeping on, upping his contract salary every single week with his performances with the Saints. So at the moment, he's in All-Australian form. And for Alir, had a pretty tough couple of weeks early this season, but he was intercept marking for fun today, especially with a lot of mistakes from other tall defenders like Radicalea. He stood up strong, and he did everything he could in that defensive half to help Port Adelaide. Unfortunately, he just couldn't get over the line in the end. The first game on Sunday was the Giants up against the West Coast Eagles, and GWS had this game won in the first quarter, ran out winners by 81 points. 132 to GWS, 51 to the Eagles. And the GWS Giants started off really well, as you would expect. The Giants found it incredibly easy to move the ball from defense to offense throughout the whole day, but it started right from the opening minutes. GWS kicked the first 3 goals of the game, and the only thing going the way of the Eagles in the opening term was the Giants' poor goal kicking. 5 goals, 6 at the quarter, and they led by 29 points at the first break, but should have been a lot further in front. However, the Giants kicked the first 4 goals in the space of 6 minutes to start the second term, and at that point, the game was all but over. West Coast did well to equalise for the remaining parts of the second term, but at half-time, they faced a 51-point deficit. And in the second half, it was basically a training drill for the Giants. The third term was a little bit more competitive than the last quarter, with the Giants only winning the third term by 1 point, but in that final term, it was just party time. The Giants kicked 6 goals in a row to take the lead over 85 points and threatened to make it a 100-point flogging, but took the foot off the gas in the final 10 minutes of the game, and in the end, the final margin was 81 points. GWS, great response from last week's loss against Hawthorn, so really good job from them. But the story here is West Coast Eagles. They look deplorable at the moment. I thought this team could have actually been climbing up the ladder a little bit this year. A couple of their recruits look really promising, but this team looks like they're destined for a bottom 2 finish. They've got question marks about players leaving, a lot of uncertainty around the field. They seem to not be listening to the Andrew McWalter game plan that they were hopefully getting in the off-season, and right now, I don't really know when they're going to get their first win. They have Carlton next week, both teams without a win. Right now, I'm picking probably Carlton because West Coast have really shown nothing in these first 4 weeks. But getting to the multiple goal kickers, GWS, Jesse Hogan, 9 goals, was absolutely insanely good today. Toby Green with the 3 goals, Tom Green with the 2, along with Darcy Jones. And for West Coast, only multiple goal kickers with Jack Williams and Cripps with the 2. On the disposals, Tom Green with the 37, Whitfield 35, Ash 31, Kelly 29, and Callahan with the 25. For the Eagles, Reed with the 25, Baker 24, Marek 22, Duggan 21, and Graham with the 19. And then finally, for the AFL fantasy watchers out there, Lockie Whitfield with the 139, Darcy Jones 123 along with Toby Green, Tom Green with the 121 and Jesse Hogan with the 117. And for West Coast, Baker 86, Duggan 76, Marek 73, Bailey Williams and Jack Williams both with the 69. But now let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes Jesse Hogan, 2 votes Toby Green, and the 1 vote to Darcy Jones. Jesse Hogan, pretty obvious that he's going to get the 3 votes here with the 9 goals. Had 12 touches, so it was full impact today. And if he continues to dominate on those lower teams throughout the year, could potentially be going going back-to-back Colemans. Really good job from him. Toby Green has had a really underrated start to the season so far. Had a pretty down 2024 campaign, but the start of this season has been brilliant from him. 3 goals today. And Darcy Jones was best on ground in the first half. Had a really good performance in between the arcs. Kicked 2 goals as well, so really evolving as that half forward for the Giants. But guys, thanks for watching this episode of the review. I hope you did enjoy it. And if you want to listen to the full episode, then make sure to go check us out on Spotify, as you can listen to the full episode there the morning after the round finishes. But that is all from me, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy it. But for now, we'll catch you all in the next one.